have to reset and just retitle it. So, hey, why not? I do have to give Damian Michaels the nod for the inspiration for this. He put out a video, sort of talking, but sort of. I mean, I only saw this one clip, so I don't know if he put out a whole video about it. But it's interesting how everybody that does talk about it, it's only the New York horse poop crisis that gets talked about. So let's do the horse poop crisis. Such an interesting story. I'll go. What's going on? The Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894. What an interesting. Like this is going to be the way they override your brain regarding, because you as a reasonable human being, you probably have this question in your head. You probably know that there's something wrong with the narrative we're given regarding the horse shit. Except you just never fully suss it out. Because you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to talk about these things. And if you do, here's the narrative you're given. It was interesting because the reason why that this was talked about, the horse manure crisis of 1894, because the New York subway is said to have been started in 1901 or 1900 and completed in 1904. You believe that these people who couldn't handle the horse shit all around the city were able to build a magnificent tunnel structure. And Belch, one of the video clips he shows is a guy talking about he's at this one point in the subway system and he's like, look at how deep I am, right? Not allowed to comment. You should be allowed to comment, I can see it. But this guy ends up taking 3 escalators and 1 flight of stairs to get out from the depths of the subway. And people just don't think about that. I never knew it was that deep till I saw that video. But to me, instantly, when I see that video, I go, yeah, make that make sense. Make it make sense, because it sure doesn't make much sense. You know, it sure doesn't seem to fit like what we're told. And this is the hardest part to get people to, this is the hardest part of the equation, so to speak. Getting people to, they let me after telling me I wasn't allowed still. I always try to get, like, when you think about 1900, what do you think about? What do you think about a modern society? I mean, it's such a crazy duality when you look at the architecture and shit that was available compared to everything else. When you look at the average way of life, the communication systems, the transportation systems, the lack of sewage systems. And it's interesting how we have been lied to about everything, says I'll go, yeah, well, That's what we've been talking about for years now. It's interesting how the vaccine narrative coincides with the this horseshit crisis, the cleanliness standards, right? So in the 1880s, they just decide that it's no longer miasma that causes diseases and gets people sick, which is essentially translates to like poisonous air, right? The air is toxic. And it's that toxic air that people are existing in that makes people sick. We went from that to the idea of there are these invisible germs, right? It's a goddamn lie. Exactly. That's what you have to understand. My great-grand, I knew her. She was born around then. My grand was born in 28. Mine was in 29. But it's not like you could talk to them about these things. They had been stunted. And to say like what am I going to remember about being 10 years old when I'm 90? That who knows? I don't know. But everything they tell us is a lie. Vaping, yes, you always see me vaping, don't you? But here we have some sort of clown trying to, take away from what's being talked about because they don't know anything. And it's not like they can debunk what I'm saying. It's not like they're knowledgeable or schooled in this conversation. They just, what do you say? My great-grand lived till I was 9. I have crazy early memories. I do too. I can remember being 2. I have little flashes of things that happened when I was really, really young. But it's like, there's like a handful of things that I've always sort of remembered. But who's to say at 90 years old you're going to remember those things? And although I remember certain instances, little things that happened, I couldn't tell you what life was like in 81, 82, 83. I have no idea. As a child, you have such a closed worldview as is. So it's all these pieces. So the first vaccines were given in 1889. And it took about 10 years for them to be, widely distributed because, again, we didn't have distribution networks back then. It's so crazy to think about a subway system and not just the subway system. That's the other thing that people don't understand. There's the pneumatic tunnel system that almost never gets talked about. The pneumatic tunnel system that delivered mail all over the city. Somehow they were able to deliver mail through pneumatic tunnels, pneumatic pipes. Paris had the pneumatic clockwork system. A lot of big cities had the pneumatic mail delivery system. And you can actually see it. I really like old cartoons. Because unlike the video of the day, it's not very clear, it's grainy, it's compromised. Cartoons, you actually get to see a colorized version, although maybe exaggerated in some cases, but a colorized version of what existed. And there's this really famous Bugs Bunny cartoon, where he's she's the daughter of Rosie O'Grady, that one where Bugs is walking through New York and then the big dogs, the big bulldog gang decides they're going to mess with him. And at the end of it, they form a gate And the big dog opens the gate and closes it, and they have Bugs cornered, and he holds up the book. A tree grows in Brooklyn, and they all run off. Remember that cartoon? Well, there's a scene in it where Bugs, and it's like you don't even think about this, but there's a scene where Bugs goes into a building, and this is something that's pretty prominent in lots of old shit, but we just don't think about it. But he goes into a building, and he goes up to the top, and he's in like this cafeteria area. And the dog comes up and he's like, "Hey, Mac, you got a dime?" And the guy gives him a dime, and he puts the dime in the machine, and then a piece of pie comes out. And he smashes him in the face, and he goes, "Oh, wait, you wanted cherry pie or something," and smashes him in the face with another piece. But I thought about that, like those old cafeteria systems that just, again, never get talked about. How did they do that? How did they facilitate these old cafeteria systems and fill in all those slots and good food, reasonable food, hot food? How did they do all that? My grand sat under the table in a shelter whilst the German blitzed Glasgow shipyards. My grandparents fought in World War I. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the narratives we're given by our grandparents are manufactured. Programs. They were programmed to tell us these things, and they were also programmed to believe that if they tell us the truth about things, they're sealing our doom, they're sealing our fate. But to think like those old vending machines having like whole sandwiches, pieces of pie, turkey dinners, and all kinds of shit inside them. How did that work? What food storage facilities did they have? What capabilities did they have back in those days to ensure freshness and just strange things? And then to think like you see those old pictures, and it's the machines are huge. And there's just multiple doors. You can get anything you want out of these machines. What were those machines? How did they get stocked? How did that whole process take place? But here, let's talk about the great horse manure crisis of 1894. And remember, at the same time, they're claiming that vaccines are what's getting rid of the sicknesses. That's where we turn this corner, is because the vaccines have made it so people aren't getting as sick anymore. When reality is, back in these times, horse shit was everywhere. Dead horses were everywhere. People used to take their own feces and just throw it in the street. They'd piss in their chamber pot and then go throw it down the street. And you'd step over it as it ran down the sides of the streets. And it's just coincidental that as we started cleaning things up, people stopped getting as sick. There weren't all these epidemics, and then when you look, like, again, I'm trying not to go down that road because it's a completely different road and it's fascinating. But if you look at like outbreaks of things generally take place, a year, maybe two, maybe as many as 3 or 4, as much as it takes for the distribution to take place. But usually around the time there's a vaccine breakthrough, within a year or two, there's the big epidemics, and polio being a real big one of those. Well, there was still plenty of dementia and stuff, but like diphtheria, yellow fever, and there's just a ton of shit that we just don't even know about anymore. It doesn't even come up, right? But all right, the Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894 refers to the idea that the greatest obstacle to urban development at the turn of the century was difficulty in removing horse manure from the streets. More broadly, it's an analogy for supposed insuperable extrapolated problems being rendered moot by the introduction of new technologies. I mean, they're sort of making it sound like this is like just a narrative, an idea that this was probably a problem. You know, like how crazy is that? You know. And the thing is, this is, you know, this story will center on New York, and the crisis is centered in New York, but there were major cities all over the country, and those major cities undoubtedly had the same problems. I read, or I saw this one video about this, where the guy said they estimated it would take 275 of today's modern day dump trucks to remove the amount of horse shit that would have been created every single day in New York. 275 modern day dump trucks. So what did they use? How did it work? Where did they take all this shit to? You know, they didn't have modern day dump trucks, so how did it work? Right? All right, so the phrase originates from a 2004 article by Stephen Davies entitled "The Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894." I mean, listen to how this is even being presented to you right now. Like it's like the commenters, the trolls in the comments, where they're trying to act like, you know, you're just crazy for asking these questions. You're just crazy for wondering how these people supposedly designed and built the subway. These same people. You know, you're crazy if you don't believe the narrative you're given. So why are you even asking questions? I don't ask those questions, so why do you ask those questions? I could be going to any other feed I wanted to and watching people talk about anything else, but I'm going to come here and tell you to stop talking about the thing you're talking about. The supposed problem of excessive horse manure collecting in the streets was solved by the proliferation of cars, buses, and electrified trams, which replaced horses as a means of transportation in big cities. Oh. So that's how we just say they dealt with it? They just got cars instead? And I encourage you, go look at all the oldest films you can find. You know, you'll see electric buses and trams and all kinds of shit that you're going, wait, how did they have that back then? And these old, you know, all the old footage, these people that were incredibly capable of building the most, you know, incredible architecture ever conceived, they couldn't figure this part out. Right? It's interesting how this works. The term Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894 is often used to denote a problem which seems to be impossible to solve because it is being looked at from the wrong direction. You're looking at it wrong. Wow, this is interesting. The same people who dug tunnels in World War I needed jobs. Clay kickers, they were called. Brave men. Yeah, they were digging tunnels. Gotcha. Again, I just don't think you understand what you're saying. I don't think you realize the literal depth of what we're talking about here. The depth of these tunnels, these incredible systems. I just don't. I think most of us don't understand what we're talking about here. And we're not supposed to. Look at how it's presented to us. Here we go again. The name refers to a supposed 1894 publication in the Times, which said, in 50 years, every street in London will be buried under 9 feet of manure. However, this citation was refuted by the Times in 2018 as erroneous. How? What did they do? An article published on June 8, 1894, complained about dust and mud rather than manure, but did not predict a crisis. I mean, just the thought of it, that you're not supposed to understand or question like how horses work. Do you know horses require, like, my grandfather was one, took a collapse, came back kind of fucked up. Yeah, well, again, I there's more to it than that. There's just more to it than that. But this idea that, like, how much water do horses need per day? Horses need, like, gallons of water per day. Horses produce, like, 15 pounds of shit each day. You know, we're pretending like this isn't a thing, but not only was it horse manure, when horses would die, they would just leave them on the streets. They just leave them there. They didn't give a fuck, apparently. Like, these savages who founded these cities, they just didn't, you know. And again, not only did they build all these tunnels and shit, they built all these tunnels under places where huge, extremely heavy buildings existed. But let's keep going. You remember him, and one of the most arrogant things we do is believing that our grandparents tell us the truth. That your grandparents are going to tell you the truth about everything, and especially the person that you can't, that's been dead. So once you sort of came online, he was already dead. You couldn't ask him stuff. And a lot of those guys, a lot of those old school guys, you know, the standard narrative is that you don't talk to them about that stuff. They don't like talking about that stuff. Anyway, the reasoning was that more horses are needed to remove the manure, and the horses produce more manure. An urban planning conference in 1898 supposedly broke up before its scheduled end due to a failure to find an answer to this problem. No such statement in the Times, nor conference result is known. Nor conference result is known. But in 1893 London, in 1893 London, there was a complaint that horse manure, formerly an economic good that could be sold, had become a disposal problem, an economic bad. An economic bad. Again, we're just supposed to believe that that the removal of horse shit was just this easily done thing. It's not like you can control where the horses shit. If you've ever been in a place where horses are, you've been like, you ever gone on a hayride or whatever, most of the time I've ever been on one, old horses pooped. And everybody laughs because, ew, look at that, the horse is pooping while we're walking, and then it stinks for a second. In 1896, in Italy, the Corriere della Sera underlined how the proliferation of cars would revolutionize habits, resulting, among other things, in the disappearance of manure from the streets. The supposed crisis has since taken on life as a useful analogy. And that's it. That's all you get. See also the Dutch manure crisis, and that's it. That's all you fucking get. Let's see what the Dutch manure crisis has to say. The Dutch manure crisis is an anticipated surge in the surplus of manure in the Netherlands. It is mainly caused by the phasing out of an exemption to the European Union's nitrates directive in the years 2023 through 2025. Okay, so that's nothing. That's not what we're talking about. It's interesting how that's literally all I can find on it. There's no, most of it's not even blue, so you can't even look it up. You're just supposed to believe that the solution to this is that there wasn't really a crisis. Horse manure is completely manageable, and there's just no problem here, people. Go back to sleep. But here you have a video from pbs.org where I guess they talk about it.
In cities lived at very, very high density.
Very, very high density. Of course, all of this is presented to us by Chosen.
There's a need for people to get from place to place, from home to work, from work to the store.
Okay, so just look at that. Just look at that. Like, who the fuck built that? Do you see this? Do you see how small the people are? How big these huge, gigantic buildings are? All these pillars and all this other shit. It's really hard for someone like me to watch history anymore. It's been that way for actually quite a long time. Especially when, you play the do you think he's Jewish game, because you're going to find that everybody that's presenting you information, the actors, the producers, all of it, it's always them, just like across the board. There might be one or two tokens that stand out. Token Goyim. But you have to understand, like for me, I always thought Zeitgeist was a really great movie/series. And it was like 2006 or so when the first Zeitgeist came out. I don't know when, 2008, 2009. Could be any time around then. And then they quickly knocked out 3 parts, I believe. Zeitgeist part 1, 2, and 3. And they basically just elaborated on the first part in the second part, and they made a better version. And I haven't watched them in a long time, so I can't give you like all the details to the T like I normally can. But in 2020, 2021, 2019, something like that, out of the blue, Zeitgeist Part 4 came out. And I was like shocked, and I was so excited. I couldn't wait to see how...
Wondering why my foot hurts so bad? You see that big ass?
Wow, that's what I get. That's what you get.
Dropped my cell phone on it.
You mean you were talking back and I hit you?
Oh, the top of my foot.
Yep, I hit you. Damn woman. I'm shaking my old man fist at you. Oh, she just flipped me off. Now she's getting hit again. But I couldn't wait to see Zeitgeist Part 4. I was so excited about it. And then I'm watching it, and it's like first guy interviewed is like Harvey Bernstein, and second interview is like John Goldberg or David Goldberg, or, and you start to notice that, wait a minute, everybody presenting me information in this has a similar quality, we'll say. And at this point, I just don't... I distrust them more than anything else. So it would have to be a pretty significant undertaking to get me to trust them or whatever narrative they are presenting me. So I ended up watching like 5 minutes of it and stopped. So anyway,
store, from the store back to home, that kind of thing.
So we first had horse-drawn public transit vehicles introduced
Yeah.
in the 1830s or 40s.
We think of horsepower, that literally comes from how many horses that you would need to move something. And
Look at the backgrounds.
Brooklyn and Manhattan,
Those people on the horses built that behind them.
to 200,000
Is that the Flatiron
horses
Building?
moving people and goods around the
Hang on.
city. And with horsepower comes horse manure. And so now you had this huge pollution problem.
Horse manure
Oh wait, he said the number. I wanted to see
was
what the
all
number
over the
was. So you just heard me read you that Wikipedia presents it like it's just some fabrication, just a fabrication.
100
That is the
to
Flatiron Building.
200,000 horses moving people and goods around the city.
Okay, so wait, I want to go back just a little bit more.
Brooklyn and Manhattan.
There's the Flatiron Building, I believe.
100 to 200,000 horses moving people and goods around.
Okay, so you just said,
In Brooklyn and Manhattan, at its peak, there was
okay, so in Brooklyn and Manhattan, there were 100 to 200,000, which is a huge gap. You know, it makes your mom's gap look tiny. Oh. But 100,000 to 200,000 is a huge difference. So first we have that, but
100 to 200,000 horses moving people and goods around the city. And with horsepower comes horse manure. And so now you had this huge pollution problem.
horse manure was all over the streets, and dead horse carcasses were all over the streets.
Each horse producing 15 to 30 pounds of manure a day times a couple 100,000 horses, and you have a big problem. The streets were a hellscape.
The flies and the smells, and what would happen when it rained and people walked through it.
You would need
Right.
approximately 250 today's garbage trucks to move all this horse manure out of the city every day.
It became very difficult to get everyone around just by horses and horse-drawn carriages because the horses would generate so much manure. It was hard to solve the mass transportation problem.
It was pretty clear to the politicians at the time that
The
we're
top
gonna keep
hats.
growing. We're going to have to move to some sort of rapid transit.
The 1800s were
so that's just that. They're going to acknowledge that there's a problem, but they're not going to give you any sort of solution. Each horse producing between 15 and 30 pounds of shit every single day. Horses dying all the time. And just being left to rot on the side of the smells, the fly. Like, the same people that built all those buildings that surround, that frame each one of these pictures, they just couldn't figure this out. And I always think about it too, like, you know, I'm telling you, you have to really, to appreciate it, you have to go look at the oldest footage you can find of any cityscape. And the scale, the size of the buildings that these people were able to create, these people without power tools, without vehicles, without electricity. They were somehow able to build buildings that still exist today. And a lot of those buildings go way down deep into the ground. Although there is the, let me see, I saved this one. There is the Indiana Bell Building. Look at this shit. Indiana Bell Building. Oops. Moved. So apparently this was able to be done while all the buildings, plumbing and all that other shit was supposedly able to be stay connected. So back, this is what they were able to do with a building. Just go ahead, swing that building around. That was what they were able to do back in... let's see here. I gotta find it now. November 1930, in Indiana, U.S., and one of the greatest feats of modern engineering was executed. A team of architects and engineers. Who was that team of architects and engineers? Moved an 11,000-ton, 22 million pounds telephone exchange without ever suspending its operations, either basic supplies, what? Without ever suspending its operations, either basic, maybe it's neither basic supplies for the 600 employees who work there. In order to comprehend this milestone, we have to go back to 1888, when the architecture firm Vonnegut, Bohn and Mueller, later known as Vonnegut and Bohn, was founded in Indianapolis by German-American architects Bernard Vonnegut and Arthur Bohn. In 1907, Vonnegut, Bohn, and Mueller designed the Indiana Bell Building in Evansville, a 7-story building for the Central Union Telephone Company, an Art Deco building later included in 1982 in the National Register of Historic Places in the United States for being part of the historical identity of Indianapolis as part of the German-American architectural legacy of the city. Gotta love these magic builders back then, man. In 1929, the Indiana Bell Telephone Company acquired the Central Union, including the offices designed 20 years earlier by German-born architects. As Indiana Bell had a large staff of employees, the initial plan was to demolish the building to build in the same area. Plan was to demolish the building to build in the same area, headquarters of much greater capacity. For this project, they commissioned Vonnegut, Bohn, and Mueller. The design did not comprise offices, but also featured the design of a call center, which at the time was operated manually by the company's own staff. The demolition of the original building would imply an immediate cut in supply services. Oh, here you go. Here's a construction photo. That's a believable construction photo, isn't it? Literally, what are they even doing? They're just sort of like standing there, holding brooms. I can't zoom in on the picture at all. It won't let me zoom in on it. All right, I guess not. But look, just look at what is this even supposed to be? They're not really doing anything. It just looks like they're doing something. No one here cares about Jesus, for sure. Jesus is fucking stupid. But I don't care about Jesus, not from the typical J perspective. I don't care about Jesus because they gave it to you and it's a bunch of bullshit. The J's, they think something completely different. So, Kurt Vonnegut, Bernard's son, was already working with his father at the firm when the phone company came up with the project that included the demolition of the previous building. Kurt proposed an innovative alternative: relocate the work, maintain the continuity of call services, and thus not discard a fully functional infrastructure. So all the buildings back then that they just used to knock down and rebuild, within a year or two, this time they were like, nah, let's move this building. Wow. I mean, do you think buildings just sit on the ground like that? That's so stupid. I mean, it's literally stupid. And of course, in this, every single one of these pictures, there's no human to be seen. You know, kind of like it's a model. But who thinks buildings just, you know, they just sit on top of the ground? You believe the building doesn't go down? What are you, crazy? Kurt's proposal was approved by the company, and for 34 days, the 11-ton building was moved 16 meters from its original location and rotated 90 degrees, a process that was completed in mid-November 1930 without interrupting or the service of calls, nor the gas supply, water, and electricity to the building. How? And how come this process isn't like common? This isn't something you've seen or heard before a bunch of times. No foundations have gone. The move was planned by engineers Bevington, Taggart, and Fowler, while contractors John Ishila Company carried out the difficult feat for the time. I would imagine that'd be a pretty difficult feat even today. How do you move a fucking building? Like, how did they even get underneath the building to begin with to move it? And it all took place in 34 days? How did they do it? The 7-story, 11,000-ton building was first lifted using hydraulic jacks. How? Like, they're going to give you an explanation, and they'll try to even sort of present it to you in this really like, come on, it's simple. We just lifted it. How do you lift a building with hydraulic jacks? An entire fucking building. You just lift up one corner, and then you lift up a little bit more and a little bit more, and like, how? The building just survives that? Then the movement was carried out with hydraulic rollers on a concrete surface on 75-ton spruce beams specifically located for this purpose. So how did they move the 75-ton spruce beams? How did they get those in place to begin with? What capacity did we have for moving 75 tons back then? It's only 150,000 pounds, right? We were cutting these gigantic spruce beams, these trees, and then hauling these large 150,000 pound building or beams. How? While the building rested on one roller, the workers positioned the next, and so on. In this way, the building was moved at a speed of 40 centimeters per hour. Even the entrance hall to the building was connected by a mobile entrance walkway that allowed rotational movement and kept it with access available at all times. Testimonials from some of the 600 building employees indicated that they did not even notice the displacement of the structure, according to the records from the Telephone Collectors International. And again, you would think, like, I mean, by this time it's 1930. So documenting historical feats, documenting things, just the camera itself, that people were documenting everything. We're just supposed to believe they did this incredible thing, unprecedented thing, and there's a handful of pictures taken. And by the way, this is during the recession. This is 1930. So while the country is being devastated by, you know, people in long soup kitchen lines supposedly, and just all the bullshit that we're told that associates with the depression, the Great Depression, the 100-year thing we're about to come up on, which is terrifying. They're just moving buildings for the fuck of it. I mean, think about how, if it's the Depression, imagine how cheap the labor costs would have been to redo it. I mean, I guess if you can just move it, why would you redo it? But still, that original building would have had to have been outdated and shit by then, right? Did you get your package upstairs?
Yes, thank you.
Despite the titanic effort, the building, located at the intersection of Meridian and New York Street, served only until the late 50s and was demolished in 1963 to be replaced by new office facilities to provide for the growing number of company operators. Of course. Today, the site houses the offices of AT&T, a 22-story complex that maintains part of the original Art Deco style of the defunct 7-story building that once housed the employees of the defunct Indiana Bell Company. The Indiana Bell building was one of the first buildings in the world to be displaced rather than demolished. Right? So they just sort of came up with it. They just did it. Ew. There's supposedly a real disgusting pedo here. There's a real J here. A Matitza Bipa or Bape, mikvah, genocide supporting, disgusting piece of shit Jay is here right now. Go on, tell us why you're not a disgusting piece of shit. Go on, let us know why we shouldn't eliminate this cult. This cult that does nothing but lie and create, you know, division and war and you know, rape children. And I mean, it's just, come on. You're easily the worst cult on the planet. Well, if you're 15, then you have a chance to break free. And if you're at all a decent person, you shouldn't need to be defined by a cult. You can absolutely be a decent person and not be associated with the horrible pedo cult. We had systems for moving large loads back then. We'd already been shipping large freight for a while. Yep. That's what it was. And just accept that we could do it. I mean, prior to the suspension bridge, built in 1883, was it? They were moving train cars over mountain passages. Moving boats, putting them on train cars, and then using donkeys to pull them over mountain ranges instead of creating a suspension bridge. It's the cult is the worst cult in the world. That's normally what we talk about here. I'm just looking at something else. Many Americans have moved castles from here to your parts. Remember, your country is young, and this is the mindset I noticed whilst in the United States. I mean, so we're told. You always have to remember, all of this is so we're told. And when we're talking about a time when they had the ability to thoroughly document shit, and they just chose not to, that's just weird. That's just weird, and you're just giving too much, like you're just ho-humming so much of it. You're just moving past it without actually thinking about it. Like this shit that we're talking about, like any sort of construction that took place in the north of the United States. You know, the suspension bridge thing is really fascinating. Fuck it. So we go Brooklyn Bridge. It will be interesting too to see like if it's been changed since I looked at it. Brooklyn Bridge. I never did do the Brooklyn Bridge deep down. I got too far into the John Augustus Roebling, born Johann August Roebling. Just everything spelled differently because that's what these old narratives include. People always just changing names. Stonemasons at their best. We got the documentation, and the empty hills where the castles are now are your continent, bro.
Whoa. Whoa. How does he say bro? Is it
That
bro?
was a girl.
Bro.
Bleh. Bleh. But that's not documentation. This is just stories. You're just talking about narratives. Okay, he was born June 12th, 1806. July 22nd, 1869. Was a German-born American civil engineer. He designed and built wire rope suspension bridges, in particular the Brooklyn Bridge, which has been designated a National Historic Landmark and a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. Early life and education. Roebling was born June 12, 1806 in Mühlhausen Okay, now remember, we're going to get a whole bunch of nonsense details to cover the fact that the meat and potatoes details we don't get. So somehow we're going to know about this guy's mother, his father. We're going to know about jobs he turned down. We're going to know about all this other shit. But how did he do it? How did he come up with those things? What experiments, what's the process to which these great inventions were created? Nothing. He was born in Mühlhausen to Frederick, Dorothea, and Christopher Polycarpus Roebling. Or Christoph Polycarpus Roebling. Polycarpus. Recognizing his intelligence at a young age, of course, they shipped him off, right? Roebling's mother arranged for him to be tutored in mathematics and science at Erfurt in Ephraim Solomon Unger. Ephraim Solomon Unger. Oh, by Ephraim Solomon Unger. So we know, again, who this guy was tutored by. He went to Erfurt when he was 15. In 1824, he passed the surveyor's examination and returned home for a year. So, good gravy. That's so terrible.
Look, she's trying to turn around to show her.
Yeah, I don't...
It takes like 3 minutes to turn
Right.
around.
In 1824, he enrolled for 2 semesters at the Buchademy, I don't know. I'm butchering that, I'm sure. In Berlin, where he studied architecture and engineering under Martin Frederick Raby. Oh, there we've got another same name thing. 1765 to 1856. Bridge construction and foundation construction under Johann Friedrich Dietlin. So literally, Now we've got another person with a Frederick as a name. So this is the third Frederick, the second Johann, 1782 to 1837, and hydraulics under Johann Albert Etzelwien. We have another Johann. Love how the Chat GPT, because they were so lazy in the programming, you know, reuses the same names over and over again. So he was taught, we know who taught him. We know who he studied under for the 2 semesters that he went to this school. Right? That makes sense. And languages. That was the other one. And languages. That's what else he studied. We don't get to know who he studied languages under. Roebling also attended lectures of the philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Got another one. It's the fourth Frederick. Fourth Frederick. I know at first you go, oh, well, no, it's just a common name. People use same common names. Sure. In one paragraph, we have 4 Fredericks. That just makes sense to you, I guess. I mean, and that's the difference too. Is either you just sort of accept this shit, you probably believe in Jesus. Like I think a lot of the people that are going to have issue with what I say are going to also be Christians. They're going to be people who from a very young age were taught to and accepted absolute bullshit. I think that's poopy. Somebody let their dog poop there. Oh, well, okay. Well, then I'm not going to be as mad. But like, it's been proven that Christians as adults have a harder time distinguishing between fact and fantasy. And so if your whole foundation of your, who you are as a person is based on faith, is based on belief in something without any evidence or reason to believe it other than being told to by a perceived authority, well, then you're probably going to have a much easier time just accepting this kind of bullshit because it just fits in. You have faith that the people telling you things don't lie to you. You've learned to overlook your skepticism, right? Because as a Christian, you were taught very early, that first time that you questioned mom. Hey, Mom, why don't we help out the homeless people like Jesus did? And she's like, shut up. Hey, Mom, well, this doesn't make sense. Hey, Mom, why did the priest get caught raping the child again? And everybody did nothing about it? Why is that? And you were taught at an early age not to ask questions. That upsets Mom. That in a lot of cases gets you in trouble because that's how they were taught to respond to those things. Because there is no, here, let me sit you down and explain it to you. It's you better fucking believe this. If you don't believe this, you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity. I'm watching this storm system roll in, and it looks like it's going to be a bad one. It's probably the remnants of the shit that's been flooding Texas and New Mexico and all these other places. He developed an interest in natural philosophy and many years later worked on a 1,000-page treatise on his own concepts of the universe. Man, this guy was fucking busy. 1,000-page treatise on his own fucking concepts of how the universe worked. Totally makes sense. In 1925, Roebling got a government job in the Arnsberg province and moved to Eslo, where he worked for 4 years on designing and supervising construction of military roads. During this period, he made sketches for suspension bridges over Ruhr and Lenne River, which were never built. In 1929, he returned to his home to work out his final thesis and prepare for his second engineering exam. For unknown reasons, he never took the exam. We know all these other things. We know who he studied under for 2 semesters. We know all that, but we don't know why he didn't take the exam. On May 22nd, 1831, Roebling left Prussia with a group of immigrants bound for the United States. They included his brother Karl and the older Johann Adolphus Etzler. Got another Johann. Hey, Johann, what? No, Johann Frederick. Oh, what? Sorry. Who believed in a technological utopia. Engineers had difficulty advancing and achieving economic mobility in Prussian society. Yeah, of course. Try to make things better. In part because of the Napoleonic Wars, because that's real, which lasted until 1815. How? I mean, there's just so many questions associated with it. How do you, I keep meaning to do Exodus. That's what we need to do. I keep forgetting to do Exodus. But the Napoleonic Wars, where you have hundreds of thousands, let's see how many troops he commanded. The wars, blah, 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 da, 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 da. 12 years, 6 months, and 2 days worth of war. Strength, 900,000 regulars, Cossacks, and militia at peak strength, 1812. 320,000 Prussian regulars. 250,000 regulars of the United Kingdom. 300,000 in Austria. 198,520 in Spain. Everybody else has this nice round figure. Spain is like, nah, we had blah, 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 blah. Portugal, 50,000. Sweden, 50,000. Netherlands, 36,500. Ottoman Empire, 350,000 regulars. How do you feed and maintain all those people? I mean, it's so strange to think about. And of course, you've never been encouraged to, or, you know, there was no looking into this as a kid. You were taught about the Napoleonic Wars, and you were taught that they were devastating. Napoleon was really small. He was small. The Rothschild connection is sort of left out. But then if you're a truther, you do sort of think, you know about that part. But nobody ever questions the legitimacy of it as a narrative. Same thing with Exodus. Exodus, you're supposed to believe that roughly 2 million Jews wandered around the desert for 40 years. I mean, can you imagine the complaining? As you know, I toured Germany and Austria with orchestra, home with the illuminated ones, frescoes and murals, etc. on the side of buildings. They're proud. If you know what you're looking for, it's there, bro. What's there? I mean, I don't understand. Are you saying that there's evidence to support any of this shit actually happening because of a fresco or something? Yeah, I mean, again, you live in nowadays where, I mean, if you honestly believe what you're told, don't watch the movie Independence Day, because you'll think the White House was blown up. But, like, again, why are you so okay with the not having logistics? Logistics, to me, are the foundation of I try to look at it from the Judy Wood perspective, right? Dr. Judy Wood has the best take on 9/11 that I've ever seen. and she has a presentation called "Where Did the Towers Go?" And it's really, really fascinating. And it's interesting because I haven't, you know, maybe today I'm going to try to see if I can find anything new from her. But we wrote the song "A Man Would Be Famous" about her. Because if she was a man, everybody would know who she is. But she was a forensic engineer with many, many years of experience and credentials under her belt, and you know, she's well vetted, and her position is undeniable, right? And so,
Love you, Pickle.
why do you have on socks, you doofus?
Because he's a doofus.
You're gonna be boiling.
I don't care.
Okay, well, take them off when you get the chance, because you're gonna want to.
Here, grab this. For them? For the car.
Put your hand on the top so the napkins don't fall off. Yeah, everybody wants to touch the napkins that you had your chinny chin chin on. Have fun, be good.
Did you kiss your dad? Yeah. Kiss your father.
I did it. I'll do it again. Ow.
Love you, buddy. Be good, okay? See? You see what I'm saying?
We don't need to talk.
See? You see how that works? Don't turn that sideways, doofus. You guys are gonna have fun. Yeah. No, hit the button. You're batting 1,000, man. You are Hall of Fame right now. Bye. Have fun. But like I say, we accept the idea of logistics without thinking about it. And to me, logistics just destroys everything. All the arguments that you can come up with. You know, guy is evil. I've had enough. Yes, I'm evil because I don't accept your call. Like, think about that. Think about how delusional and insecure someone has to be to have that perspective. If you don't accept the belief structure that I have, that I'm born superior to you, you know, that you're just a goyim, and goyim are everything that isn't us. And because of that, you're a slave. You know, 2,800 slaves. They each get 2,800 slaves. To think that, like, I'm evil because I don't accept that, because I think we should kill pedos, because I think we should stop genocide. Like, think about how insecure and stupid you have to be. If your shit was real, if your shit was true, you wouldn't care what some random guy on YouTube had to say. You know? You'd have knowledge to back up the faith that your shit is the real deal, and you'd just be like, yeah, there are crazy people out there that don't think like I think. But to then, you know, take it to that next step, and I'm gonna try to, you're evil. Like, it's just so telling how desperate they are, because they know that the more people that hear what I have to say, so like, share, and sub for sure, the more people that hear what I have to say, the less likely they are to maintain their position. And it's crazy too, because like, in my head, I say, look, when you lose this, you don't have to be regulated to, you know, the bottom of the heap. If you're cool, you could just say, yeah, we're all here together, everyone's equal, let's all live a good life together. No slaves, none of that bullshit. Kill the pedos, and, you know, as long as you're you know, cool with that part of things, and you denounce your cult, your superiority cult, you're welcome to stay. Like you're welcome to be a part of the utopian society that comes from that. But when that's the idea, when it's like, okay, well, you're no longer going to be considered, you're no longer going to be in a supreme position. You're no longer going to get the Semitism you demand, which is policy and predisposition favorable to the bad guys. Like, if that's the necessity that you have to have for you to feel secure, that's really telling, and it's just more evidence, more logistics as to why we need to remove this fucking shit. Why we need to remove this disgusting pedo cult. Again, anybody that says, no, I'm Team Goyim, I'm Team we're all here together, let's make life better for everyone, let's kill the pedos and, let's improve things. Like, you're the guy. You're more than welcome to hang out, especially if you were raised in the brainwashed cult. If you're anybody that was raised in that shit and you're big enough to leave it behind, you're good enough of a person to say, I don't care what my insecure, insane mother and father think. I refuse to believe in this insane superiority complex. Like, you're a superhero. You're a unicorn. I've never met you before. What they show us is like fake versions, like Ari Shafir, who is an absolute supremacist, racist piece of shit. He'll tell you he's an atheist. He's an atheist Jew. That's what he'll tell you. Which they don't coincide. They don't coexist. We're not talking about a race of people. You can't convert to a race. I don't care what kind of stereotypes you want to adapt or adopt, and dress like a clown, act like a clown, or because that's the stereotype. The stereotype would be, to be black, you have to act like a clown. If you're going to be white, well, then you have to act like this and have to be well spoken, and like that brainwashed narrative that exists in that regard. But you can't convert. That's the point. It doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter how you dress, how you speak, or anything like that. You can't convert to a religion. To a race. We're talking about a group of people that is not a race. Where does this race of people come from? And the thing is, they just did this study the study just came out saying 95% of Israelis don't have Semitic blood. They come from places like Ukraine, United States, Poland, places like that. So we're not talking about a race of people. We're talking about an identity. And I oppose all identities that are supremacist in nature. There's no racism involved. If I find out that you were raised in the cult, granted, I'm going to be skeptical of you, but that's because of what I've experienced. Because I've seen the lengths that your cult will go to maintain supremacy. We got to remember they can be born individuals and exceptions exist. Check my latest share today, bro. That's my Jewish born bro, a child of the universe. Real good dude. Well, again, he was born into a cult. That doesn't mean he's that by, again, it's not an identity. I love the interview with Morgan Freeman. Fuck it. We'll show it real quick because it's extremely telling. Morgan Freeman and Mike Wallace. Listen
Now
to
we gotta go help people customize
listen to
and
how
save
Mike Wallace like talks down to Morgan Freeman. Listen to listen to how condescending he is, his condescending tone. Listen to how he's just so arrogant and just listen. This is Morgan Freeman he's talking to.
with Liberty Mutual. Maybe where's the golf carts?
Which again, I don't care about as an actor, but you know what I'm saying? Like from our perspective.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why?
Just right there. Just right there. Black History Month, you find, and he says ridiculous. Why? What's wrong with you? We gave you a month. Granted, it's the coldest, shortest month, but we gave you a whole month. Why aren't you grateful, you dumb black goy? Is what Mike Wallace is saying.
Oh.
But listen to the response.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours?
Wait. He says, oh, come on. Like, that's not a reasonable response. You're going to regulate my history to a month? What do you mean? There's only a month worth of my history? And he says, what do we do with yours, right? Now watch how uncomfortable Mike Wallace gets.
You find ridiculous. Why?
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do
Oh,
with yours?
come on.
Which month?
Look at how uncomfortable he is.
Well, come on. Tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, so he says month is White History Month, and Mike Wallace for the next 10 seconds stumbles over himself because he can't just go with the narrative. He knows he's there to do a job. He knows he's just the interviewer. It's not about him. He's supposed to push the interview through regardless. But to identify as a white person, as the majority of you watching, right? To be like, yeah, I'm just a regular white person like any other white person. He can't do it. He's like, watch. First, there's the part where he says, what about White History Month? That's when it starts. But Morgan keeps talking. And then he stops. And I think it's 4 seconds or 6 seconds that he just sits there in silence while Mike Wallace stumbles over himself.
Which month is White History Month?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm Jewish.
6.
Okay.
Takes him 6 seconds to come up with the response to deny that he's just a white guy. He's just like anybody else. I'm a white guy. No. Well, I'm Jewish. So then White History Month doesn't apply to you? Is that what he's saying?
Month of Jewish History Month.
There isn't one.
Oh. Why not? Do you want one?
No. I mean, do you not see that? The psychological games that are being played in that shit? Well, which month is Jewish History Month? Well, do you want one? No. Why not? I mean, you don't identify with white history, so shouldn't there be a separate month just for you? Why not? That seems strange, right? Yeah, well, it's such a diverse population. We go back to communism and shit. Don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so we're back to talking about Roebling, the bridge builder, right? So engineers had difficulty in advancing and achieving economic mobility in Prussian society, in part because of the Napoleonic Wars, which lasted until 1815, and suppressed investment in infrastructure. Why? Who was suppressing the investment in infrastructure? Why would they be? During this period, Prussia also had considerable political unrest as authoritarian governments took the places of democratic ones. How? I'm sure that's an interesting story. We'll just get over. So, Eliezer believed they could create, Etzler, sorry, Etzler. Etzler, that's the guy that we're talking about. This is the guy that built the Brooklyn Bridge, supposedly. Believed they could create a technological utopia in the United States, but disputes arose among the men en route. The group split up after reaching Pennsylvania. They came all the way here from Prussia together, not speaking the language, not knowing the land, any of that shit, but they couldn't get over their petty differences and split up after reaching Pennsylvania. John and Carl Roebling purchased 1,582 acres of land on October 28th, 1831 in Butler County. With what? When? I mean, like, how? So I mean, he was an engineer, but he was having difficulty finding work and shit. So how did they have money saved up and whatnot to come here? And then they got it transferred over, and he bought 1,500 acres, 1,600 acres basically, in Butler County with the intent to establish a German settlement to be called Saxonburg. Most of the other settlers had remained with Etzler, so he had a whole group of followers. In 20th century recognition of his historic importance, the John Roebling House at Saxonburg was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1976. Notice a theme here? You guys notice a theme here? When the Roeblings and others arrived, the United States was in the later stages of an economic boom, which ended in the financial panic of 1837. Right? Because you don't realize it, but they do this 100-year cycle bullshit. 1929, 1830s. They're like, they do it every 100 years. And if you look at on a smaller level, or maybe just the same level, you know, look at the COVID bullshit of 2019 and the Spanish flu of 1718. Look at the 2008-2009 financial crisis, mini recession, and there was one in 1909. And I bet if you go back and you look, there's probably a pandemic that happened 100 years earlier, and like, they love the 100-year cycle, at least as far as the narrative we're given. And if you think about it, I mean, if you do your shit every 100 years, you're basically assuring that 99% of the people that are alive, maybe even 99.9% of the people that are alive, not only weren't alive, but you know, any relatives that were alive are long dead. And they you know, they didn't talk about these kinds of things. You know, my grandmother has a UFO story where a lot of shit was going on. 100 years, point, spot on, gotta fly. See ya, have a great day, Karen. My grandmother has a UFO story where she says that I think they were driving, and they had pulled over for some unknown reason on the side of the highway, and a bunch of other people did too, and presumably, like, looking back, it's because they saw something. But she said that suddenly, when you looked up, there was this big, long, cigar-shaped black thing that was moving silently across her vision point. But as soon as it got past being overhead, you couldn't see it anymore. And I haven't seen her in a while. She lives in California. So I haven't been able to really ask her about it. But I'd love to talk to her. I'd love to know. I'm going to maybe send her a text and see if she'll send me a description of what happened. But to think like she was a little girl, look, right in the crux of the tree, right where it's supposed to be, right where the clouds come to an end. What do you think that is, my friend? It's just airplane exhaust. Stratospheric aerosol injections. You guys see it? You see? And then it just shuts off, I guess. Plane stops on. You can still see I can still see the plane. It's about to go through that little patch of clouds right there. I can still see it. But it's just all I see is a white plane shape. Who knows what the fuck that actually is? But then you have tons of people who will say shit like, well, chemtrails aren't real. Like cloud seeding isn't this, well-documented thing that they've been doing for a very long time. Like stratospheric aerosol injection isn't the thing that there's plenty of information on. I love going to the chemtrail conspiracy theory Wikipedia page where the first line calls it an erroneous conspiracy theory, and then everything else tells you exactly why people think the way they do, and gives you all the evidence that you need that there's all kinds of crazy shit happening from a geoengineering perspective. Like, what do you think geoengineering is? Engineering of the geo. What do you think it means? Do you honestly think they can't drop shit out of planes? Do you honestly think like weather control hasn't been a main top priority for the system the whole time? And the reality is, they've long had that technology. In 1959, Disney, in collaboration with the military, put out a series called Eyes to the Skies or Eyes to Outer Space or something like that. Or maybe it's Eyes to the Skies, but then it's 3 different parts, and one part is Eyes to Outer Space. I don't quite remember. But you can find it. I mean, it's... Eyes to the Sky, Disney. Gotta get through some bullshit, apparently. So somebody else has... People have recorded songs and whatnot that hide the... That's so strange. Now you get all these cartoons and Inside Out 3 trailer, Alan Parsons Project. Like, where the fuck is this? Okay, let's try. Eyes to Outer Space, Disney. Let's see. There it is. Eyes in Outer Space. You need to look this up.
How boomers are looking better than millennials.
So this is my mom and this is my grandma. I recently...
The weather gives us our daily bread. The weather makes possible all living things. And the weather certainly influences our daily lives.
And I can't be showing Disney stuff, right? This is Periscope. I think this is... Yeah,
and even criminal. It's a sun. New Year's Day, and if a fine pond or public, I way up where the cold's intense, then back into drops rise. Fading in the opposite direction. Here, air pressure is high. This usually brings clear skies and and wind speed. Forces behind the weather. Unexplored polar regions are given, and rockets launched from the ground carry instruments higher and higher. Unfortunately, these flights last but a short time, and only a small amount of information can be obtained. But now we have more advanced scientific devices for gathering data continuously over long periods of time, not only from the atmosphere, but from space beyond.
See, the thing about this is this isn't meant to be a fantasy. This is one of these things that's one of these brags that they always used to do, where they're bragging about the technology they have or they're about to have. And in this case, they're talking about controlling the weather and how close they are.
Artificial satellites. Satellites
Gotta love it.
reach into the unknown with instruments that duplicate man's own senses. The eye of the satellite is a photocell or a radiation counter.
Or
Its ear, a tiny microphone. Its memory, a tape recorder. And its voice is a radio transmitter. Here, these instruments are placed in an actual weather satellite, designed to record the cloud formations covering the Earth. In this cross-section view, we see how all the instruments reduced to an amazingly compact unit weighing but a few pounds. Here is one of the electronic eyes of the satellite. This eye converts the light reflected from land. You're trying to do a limited with imagination and speculate on how satellites might.
all right, here you go.
Let us project our present knowledge with imagination and speculate on how satellites might be used in future operations from a worldwide weather center.
Worldwide Weather Center, huh?
This is the master control room.
All right.
Electronic maps and view screens display up-to-the-minute pictures of the weather around the Earth. Every hour, reports are automatically received from all points at sea, on land, and in the air.
This is
22,000
1959.
miles out in space, 3 robot satellites
22,000 miles.
television eyes.
He said 22,000 miles, 3 robot satellites. They hadn't gone with the idea that they're gonna thousands and thousands. 3 satellites do all this.
These pictures are monitored on viewing screens in the weather center. Here in the computing room,
Look at these are the computers of 1959. So when you start talking about submarines, nuclear-powered submarines, remember that's what computers looked like back then. The computers that you believe regulate the pressure on the inside of the submarine to match the pressure on the outside as they climb and decline and incline. And you swim all around, and that pressure changes in order to maintain not being blown up or imploded. You believe that the computer is constantly regulating the pressure on the inside. And the nuclear submarines were just invented in the early 50s. In 52, they sort of decided they wanted them. And by 55, I believe, Rick Hoover had invented them. And so you believe that you know, that they had this technology to compute things. And remember, these aren't like, computers didn't advance tremendously over the next few years. It wasn't until the 80s that computers supposedly got small. Prior to that, if you saw anything that had to do with computers, it was, you know, big machines with like flashing buttons on them and the reel-to-reel things on them. And, you know, the computers were just these gigantic things. So when you think about, you know, the Concorde being invented in 69 and basically completely flown by onboard computers, or you think about the supposed computers used in the moon landings and shit like that, we're talking about what we're shown in any other capacity as being these things that require giant rooms to house them. Yet in these specific technologies, they somehow were able to miniaturize things. And like with nuclear subs, not only do they have giant computer rooms miniaturized down to fit in a submarine, but they also have nuclear power plants. Each one of those is a nuclear power plant, supposedly. And we're talking about the beep, 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 boop, 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 boop. That's the computer part. Those are the computers that we had back then. They all made those $6 million man noises.
An ever-changing diagram of the Earth's weather. Forecasts for every sector of the globe are made months in advance. Prediction charts have indicated that a powerful hurricane will begin forming today in the Atlantic Ocean. The electronic weather map shows an intense
That's a weird looking map.
Building up about 1,000 miles due east of Miami, Florida.
And that shows, wow, look at the North Pole that shit shows you.
Storm system.
Wow, that doesn't look like the North Pole that we're shown. You can vaguely see Michigan, but then you can see how it's supposedly all lakes and shit up above. There's a great waterway in between that, or is that supposed to be Greenland? Is that what they're saying Greenland is? I can't really tell by the picture. But that's just interesting how they did that. And then even the South Pole, look at the South Pole along the bottom. It's interesting.
Building up about 1,000 miles due east of Miami, Florida.
Ooh.
The controller calls for a close-up satellite view of the troubled area.
Coco 526, Yankee 2.5. Okay, controller, Coco 526, Yankee 2.5.
That's the satellite.
The characteristic swirling clouds of the hurricane are beginning
to
form.
Shit.
At sea, the waves anticipate the violence to come. The controller calls for a last-minute prediction of the hurricane's path.
Here's the computer.
If control measures are not begun at once, the hurricane will smash across densely populated areas within 48 hours.
11 a.m. EST.
Oh, shit.
A hurricane is forming 960 miles east of Miami, Florida. If control measures are ineffective, it will pass inland at Cape Hatteras in 48 hours. Control operations will begin within 2 hours, but safety precautions should be completed from Cape Fear, north no later than 6 p.m. tomorrow.
At Weather Central, the control strategy is mapped out. A ridge of high pressure slants across the eastern United States between two low-pressure storm systems. If these two storm centers are intensified, the high will build up along the coast, forming a barrier that will turn the hurricane out to sea.
Stand by. Now pulling in satellite number 1 for visual check of low-pressure systems L20 and L21.
Yeah, it was a good voice, wasn't it?
The operator brings the satellite into focus on the two storms. One centered over Kansas, the other over Labrador.
Changing the north
Labrador?
L21.
Fuck is Labrador?
With the touch of a button, the battle begins.
Boop.
On the ground, chemical cloud seeders begin to work the two storm areas.
Chemical cloud seeders.
Robot planes seed the clouds from above.
Robot planes seed the clouds from above. Now, I know you're stupid and you're like, dude, this is just a dude. This is a military-sponsored propaganda video that they're using to brag about what they're on the verge of doing. Probably long could do, but this is them sort of slowly introducing it to us like they often do. And when you I mean, is it like, do you honestly think that like, oh look, a seahorse? That shit looks low as fuck, doesn't it? Wow. Look how fast that one's moving, and that one's barely moving at all, that square-shaped one. Look how perfectly square that one is. I don't know if you guys can actually see it, but let's see. Look how square that shit is. And it's just sitting perfectly still. I don't know if you guys can see the top of it, but you can literally see it's like a perfect square. We should watch it for a minute and see what happens. See if suddenly a bigger cloud formation forms around it out of nowhere. I don't want to sit there and hold it like that. It hurts. We'll just keep it right in the background, right there. Definitely square shaped.
The storm centers over Kansas and over Labrador. Intensified seeding continues.
Now changing over to Hurricane Center
The fury of the hurricane mounts as 100-mile-an-hour winds lash the sea to a foaming frenzy.
All stations, Sector C. Activate Phase 2 Control Plan Delta. Set vapor rockets for...
Vapor rockets.
As an emergency measure, the controller calls for a salvo of vapor rockets to be fired ahead of the path the hurricane is predicted to take. These artificial clouds will block the sun from evaporating more water to feed the hurricane.
Oh, Labrador's in Canada.
Coming into the control centers indicate that the diversionary cloud seeding over Kansas is now creating a flood danger.
The cloud seeding. Anyway, you can go watch.
Robot aircraft are dispatched immediately to release a high concentration of cloud seeding material into the fringes of the storm. Heavier seeding from the ground also helps to subdue the rain by spreading it over a wider area.
It's hard to see, it's
the
dark.
controller calls for another view of the hurricane, which has now moved closer to the coast.
Oh look, a bunch of shit has just sort of appeared around it.
Signal out on number 1.
That's interesting. Oh look. Just as we speak, another trail just gets laid right there, right where that was. You guys see this, right? You see the clouds just sort of manifesting right where that thing is. And now this shape is still square shaped. It's just bigger. But it's still shaped just like a square. It's interesting. I can't tell you what it is, but I do think it's interesting. Look at the five like visible portions form a square. Let's see if I can put my finger there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth one in the middle. It's literally a square. A little bit, maybe a little more rectangular. Little bit. The top and bottom sides are a little bit longer than the sides of it are. I don't want to sit here and keep doing this. So I guess we'll just have to come back and check on it periodically. So, we're still talking about the bridge. It's so hard to talk about any of these things and stay on one topic because it's all so connected. I mean, you know, I bringing up this idea that this guy just sort of shows up in 37 and I don't know, I guess all the different points are to make the to make the argument that you're being lied to on a bunch of different levels. And maybe if you see the lies on one side, you're more likely to see the lies on the other. I don't know. I don't know. I personally don't know how people can look at things the way they do and not have questions. Like, why are there right angles in clouds? It's a perfect right angle. I'm crazy. I get it. You call me crazy all you want. There'll be, you know, all sorts of things that if you want to, you can focus on, and you can act like you know things about that thing. But anyway, they arrived. The United States was in the later stages of an economic boom, which ended in the financial panic of 1837, reducing everyone's opportunities. Farmers were deeply affected by it as they often depended on credit to produce the next season's crops. By the 40s, the economy was improving, and many Americans believed in the nation's manifest destiny to extend its borders and achieve greatness on the North American continent. Transportation between eastern industrial hubs and frontier farming markets had become a matter of both national and popular interest. All right, listen, this is crazy. Many railway and transportation projects were underway near the site of which Roebling chose for his colony. But instead of continuing in the engineering profession, he took up farming. What? Why would that make sense? Why would he do that? Just another view. Still sitting in the same spot. He took up farming. After 5 years, he married Johanna, Johann but with an A, Johanna Herting, a tailor's daughter. He found agrarian work unsatisfying, and Saxonburg attracted few settlers. In 1837, after the birth of his first child and the death of his brother Carl, Roebling returned to engineering for work. Yeah, okay. That makes so much sense. He first worked on projects to improve river navigation and build canals. Just did. For 3 years, he conducted surveys for the state of Pennsylvania for railway lines across the Allegheny Mountains from the capital Harrisburg to Pittsburgh in the far west at the start of the Ohio River. In 1840, Roebling wrote to suspension bridge designer Charles Elliott Jr., offering to help with the design of a bridge near Philadelphia. The study of suspension bridges formed for the last few years of my residence in Europe my favorite occupation. Let but a single bridge of the kind be put up in Philadelphia, exhibiting all the beautiful forms. Yeah, go ahead. Beautiful. Good morning, by the way. Good morning, by the way.
Oh, I forgot to say good morning.
Sure did.
Yeah, I thought I came up and said good morning and punched you. You know, because he's a horrible dad. That's what he gets.
Exactly.
But it turns out I didn't have to log on early. I have my alarm head set since me and Mom figured it out. It's at 12, so I'm really stupid.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah,
that's what happens because
all the time.
Right.
He just hates.
Well, it comes from
see
me.
Some bruises that he's given me.
Me hitting you.
Like,
that's why
he
you're so
stabbed
dumb.
me too.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's why you're
God.
so dumb, because I hit you in the head all the time.
Yep, I'm Goku.
Look at that. We've got another one of these much lower cloud systems, rail cloud systems. Just moving lightning speed. While the ones behind it stand still. That's fucking interesting looking, isn't it? And so the ones that aren't moving, where the planes come through, you would think like, is that Is it still up there? Is it much more still up there? Is that why the trails don't get ripped apart by the heavy winds up there? Let but a single bridge of the kind be put up in Philadelphia, exhibiting all of the beauty forms of the system to full advantage, and it needs no prophecy to foretell the effect which the novel and useful features will produce upon the intelligent minds of the Americas. Who the fuck writes like that? What's the point of writing like that? Are you offering to help? Like, what's going on? At that time, canal boats from, listen to this. At that time, canal boats from Philadelphia were transported over the Allegheny Mountains on railroad cars in order to access waterways on the other side of the mountains so that the boats could continue to Philadelphia. They were transporting boats on railroad cars over the mountain ranges. The system of inclines and levels that moved the boats and conventional railroad cars was a state-owned enterprise, the Allegheny Portage Railroad. The railroad cars were pulled up and down the inclines by a long loop of thick hemp rope, up to 7 centimeters thick. The hemp ropes were expensive and had to be replaced frequently. Roebling remembered an article he had read about wire rope. He just remembered an article he read about it somewhere, sometime, someplace. Soon after, he started developing a 7-strand wire rope at a rope walk that he built on his farm. He was developing wire ropes. Where did he get the single strands from? Did Wire Rope RS just deliver a bunch of strands to him in the 1840s? They were just like, here's a bunch of metal for you to fuck around with and try braiding on your self-made rope braiding mechanism at your farm over here. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Think about how crazy this is. And see, this is where, like, it really shows you what's going on in the comment section, right? Because if this was real people, they'd be like, wow, this is kind of weird. Yeah, this doesn't sort of match what we're told. And you know, where did he get his supplies from? And I'm literally reading you the narrative we're supposed to have. You go ahead and you find me another narrative that I'm supposed to read about Johann Etzler, whatever his name was, and show me how I'm supposed to glean any more information about this stuff and why Wikipedia is not a good source for it in this regard. Like, I'd love to hear your arguments regarding this. You won't, because you can't. Most of you don't know shit about this. I only know about this because I've looked it up before. But it's not like this was encouraged learning growing up. Here, why don't you try to figure out how they invented the Brooklyn Bridge. But this just gets better, right? So this guy is just the wire maker. Like, again, where were these large strands of wire? Where were these being produced? What factory was in place that could produce long strands of wire but never thought to braid them together? I mean, it really is like phenomenally stupid, the narrative you're supposed to believe, and then these lengths that they go to protect it. You know? The people that are normally here and mad at me about talking about genocide and ending pedophilia and all that stuff, they hate that topic. And they always want to cry that I'm not talking about submarines enough. So now I'm talking about something along the same lines as we do the submarine talk. And now they're mad about this. and desperately trying to change the subject or shoot the messenger because, you know, I'm just reading you what you're supposed to know, and that sure is bad. He remembered an article about wire rope and started developing a 7-strand wire rope at a rope walk that he built on his farm. I think that's such a strange sentence. You know, I know what a rope walk is. It's, you know, it's where, like, if you see how rope is made, there's the product. It's then fed into the machine, and then the machine creates strands that you walk, as you walk out, you pull on it and you braid the shit as it goes, and it's how you can make, you know, really strong rope. In 1841, Roebling began producing wire rope at Saxonburg to use in suspension bridges and such projects as the Portage Railroad. They just did it. And you'd think this would be a crazy enough story as is, but in 1844, Roebling won a bid to replace the wooden canal aqueduct across the Allegheny River with the Allegheny Aqueduct. His design encompassed 7 spans of 163 feet, each consisting of a wooden trunk to hold the water, supported by a continuous cable made of many parallel wires, wrapped tightly together on each side of the trunk. He followed this innovation in 1845 by building a suspension bridge over the Monongahela River in Pittsburgh. The confluence of the Allegheny and Monongahela River at Pittsburgh forms the Ohio River. It's weird because it seems like they're leaving shit out here, but let's keep going. In 1848, Roebling undertook the construction of 4 suspension aqueducts on the Delaware and Hudson Canal. During this period, he moved to Trenton, New Jersey. In Trenton, Roebling built a large industrial complex for wire production for growing his company. He built these things? He took these jobs? Like, it doesn't say that he had this huge workforce that he was employing. Let's see. Wait, I just want to see something. Oh, look. The dumb J profile is joined a day ago and has no subscribers. Boy, that seems real, doesn't it? This person that's claiming to have been watching tons of my videos has only been joined to YouTube for a day. Meaning they've had multiple other profiles blocked by me, and they still keep making new ones to come watch. Isn't that interesting? Must be because I'm wrong and crazy. In Trenton, large industrial complex, John A. Roebling's Sons Company. John A. Roebling's Sons Company. That doesn't make any sense. It's saying it's the company of his sons. This complex inspired Trenton's motto that appears on the Lower Trenton Bridge. Trenton makes the world takes. What? Roebling's next project started in 1851, a railroad bridge connecting the New York Central and Great Western Railway of Ontario, Canada, over the Niagara River. Construction took 4 years this time. It's really interesting how the stories have changed. They've took out a lot of this shit. They took out the like, there was more to the first bridge. I'm shocked I can't find. I can't find the bridges, or I can't find that part about the bridge. Why? Why is that? Like all the names of the bridges have been removed. So this is the High Bridge. Is a railroad bridge crossing the Kentucky River Palisades in Kentucky. The bridge, about 275 feet over the river below, connects Jessamine and Mercer counties. It was formally dedicated in 1879 and is the first cantilever bridge built in the United States. So he invented this too. It has a 3-span continuous underdeck truss, which is used by the Norfolk Southern Railway to carry trains between Lexington and Danville. The High Bridge is a National Historic Civil Engineering landmark. In 1851, the Lexington and Danville Railroad, with Julius Adams as chief engineer, retained John A. Roebling, who later designed the Brooklyn Bridge, to build a railroad suspension bridge across the Kentucky River for a line connecting Lexington and Danville, Kentucky, west of the confluence of the Dix and Kentucky rivers. In 1855, the company ran out of money, having built only stone towers and anchorages. Okay, so I'm really confused as to why I can't find his son, Washington Roebling, of course. It's so strange that okay, so here's the projects. Okay, maybe this will do it. Okay, here we go. The Allegheny Aqueduct was John A. Roebling's first wire cable suspension bridge. It was built in 1884 near the later Fort Wayne Railroad Bridge as a replacement for a wooden covered bridge aqueduct over the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh, part of the Pennsylvania Canal. Oh, but there's no more history to it. How the fuck? They just removed it all? Seriously? What's up, dude? How you doing, Matt? I'm just shocked. They just completely removed the fucking... They just removed it. The Pennsylvania Canal Tunnel was the Pittsburgh terminus of the Pennsylvania main line of public works, a transportation system that involved other earlier tunnels. Construction was authorized February 8th, 1827, and the tunnel was completed November 10th, 1829. Wait, this is before the Thames Tunnel. I thought the Thames Tunnel was the first one that went underground, underneath a water sign. It went underneath a water system. The River Thames was the first tunnel, and that was in 1840. But apparently, construction was authorized on February 8th, 1827, and the tunnel was completed November 10th, 1829. So from authorization, which that doesn't mean the construction started. from this tunnel being authorized to exist or to be completed or to be made, it's an 810-foot tunnel. Constructed cut and cover. Okay, it's located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Its status is abandoned. Its waterway is Main Line of Public Works, Pennsylvania. Start Pittsburgh Turning Basin of the Western Division of the Pennsylvania Canal. And it ended on the Monongahela River at Sook's Run. It opened November 10th, 1829 and closed 1857. Its designer was Malloy and Malvey. Malvey, I don't know how you say that. Apostrophe capital Alvey. I'm not sure how you say that. But it's a tunnel. It's the Pennsylvania Canal Tunnel. So that means it went underneath the ground. Did it go underneath a waterway? We'll find out. The canal crossed the Allegheny River on a covered bridge aqueduct, later replaced by John A. Roebling's first suspension bridge, the Allegheny Aqueduct. The canal traveled underground through most of downtown Pittsburgh, under Grants Hill, to end in a lock leading to the Monongahela River. So they were locks were a easy thing to do. Tunnels, I guess, were an easy thing to do. What the fuck are we talking about? The original plan was to connect with the C&O canal at the Monongahela River, but that canal never reached its expected western end, and the tunnel's main use was to allow overflow from the canal to enter the Monongahela River. Only 1 or 2 canal boats ever went through the tunnel and the lock. Holy shit! This is what's so fascinating when you start doing this, is what you stumble into. And you don't stumble into things that sort of make you go, oh, okay, yeah, I guess this makes a lot of sense. You stumble into shit that makes you go, what the fuck are we even talking about here? The tunnel was made obsolete by the arrival of the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1852. How would it be made obsolete if its purpose was to handle the overflow of water? What would the railroad have to do with that? The canal tunnel was uncovered during the construction of the U.S. Steel Tower in 1967, and later during the construction of the subway system, which used part of the tunnel on the south side. Photographs. Okay, let's see these photographs. There's no photographs here. It took me to this bullshit page with one goofy photo on it. It's an extremely telling photo, because photo by Bob Rathke, 2/11/68. So this was in 1968. We had that big, giant, super old-looking building, and then this tunnel system underneath. But that didn't show. Okay, so photos. It literally has a section titled Photographs, and then it takes you somewhere else. So this takes me to, the next one takes me to a photo at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's The Digs blog. And I click on it, and it has that logo at the top, of course, but then you have to pay to be able to see it. Some random Pittsburgh fucking Gazette, I gotta pay to pay attention to your bullshit? Did they shut the comments down? Matt showed up and they shut the comments down. So that's literally all I can find on that. Why isn't there more information available regarding this thing? Why did the information about the suspension bridge, the whole Pittsburgh, the aqueduct, the suspension bridge, the whole thing where he supposedly from August of whatever 18 something it was to like May of the next year in Philadelphia, he built the suspension bridge, the first suspension bridge. And he also removed the previous ones that were these stone pillars that were in the middle of the bridge. He removed all of the previous shit and built the other one. And they don't say he had a whole crew or anything. They just say he did it. Huge long ass suspension bridge. And at the same time, he was either he had started work on or he was bidding for another job, but he basically did two bridges at the same time. And this is over the winter in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia. Now, maybe I can excuse people who have no idea what the fuck that's like, but if you have any idea what winter time in Philadelphia is, you understand how insane that idea, that narrative we're giving is. It's just stupid. It's fucking stupid. Okay, so we still have comments. We just got lazy, I guess. Wait, who knew about the Pennsylvania Canal Tunnel? And why would they call it the Canal Tunnel? Traveled underground through most of downtown Pittsburgh, under Grants Hill, to end in a lock leading to the Mulligana River. I just can't believe they fucking took the whole narrative down. That's just shocking to me. Why would there be this narrative that was readily available a year ago? And now that whole thing's been scrubbed? Like, how does that even work? Why would that be a thing? This is the first wire cable suspension bridge. You would think there would be a reasonable history on it. I'm kind of stumped actually, because I'm trying to figure out like where can I find this information? It was here, but now it's gone. Even the part where they talk about how they pulled the railroad carts over the mountains. It used to say by donkeys. They used donkeys to do it. They took that part out too. I'm sure I have a previous video talking about this, where I read to you exactly what it says. All right, so let's see. Trying to go to the page. I don't want to go to my live video. I want to go to the page. Let's go to, there we go. All right. Let's see. It'll be so hard to find it. the Liebig Tobacco Company. I think that's a really strange story that, again, not talked about. London Bridge. London Bridge is another crazy one. The San Bernardino shooting. Boy, was that an interesting read. We might have to do that one again. Coral Castle. Book of Job. Now, reading Genesis. Direct energy weapons. Hollywood. Hollywood some more. I don't know if I titled this one. Might not have titled it. I'm sure you guys know which video it is. Yeah, these are back when I didn't title them. Shit. Damn it. I didn't title it. But like I say, I'm sure you guys know. Next month, the wall. There's Dead Sea Scrolls. Supremacy. Man. I really wish I would have titled that shit. Drum shooting. I could have sworn I did. It was titled Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, can't find it. Lots of stuff about hostages. Oh yeah, Brian Mullen. You guys should absolutely check out the Brian Mullen stuff. That shit is crazy. Yeah, now we're so far back. Couldn't find it. I'm just shocked here. I don't even know what to do. Like, look up projects. Projects doesn't come up. Personal life. Let's see. Maybe it'll talk about it here. Roebling was the youngest of 4 children. He was baptized. So again, so we know this is what I was talking about earlier. We're given these crazy ass nothing details. You know, we're given. So as you walk away from this, and let's say you're reading it, and you're not reading it skeptically, and you're not You know, you're just trying to get the information that you need to get so that you can, because nobody's going to be doing this. Nobody just looks this shit up because they're weird and nerdy like me and they like to know stuff. The only time you're going to be looking this shit up is if you're like a kid in school and you had a book report due or some shit like that. So that the burden of proof isn't going to be significant. You have to appease a teacher who has the access to the same information brainwashing that you do. So the way it's presented is just going to be that, is book report, brainwashing, boring, don't ask too many questions sort of details. Yes, I live in the 2-story trailer you just saw me walk through. We're balling. We got a 2-story trailer. I love when people say stupid shit. It's distracted me. Good job. Forgot what the fuck I was saying. It all comes down to your willingness to ask the questions. And apparently deal with the harassment that you get. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. So you know, they provide you with this information that is extremely detailed in the nonsensical ways. The shit that doesn't matter at all. But absolutely lacking in detail, and apparently removed detail about the important stuff, the potatoes of it. But because you had all this extra information given to you, you end up just thinking in your head, oh yeah, that was a good detailed, you know, explanation of the shit. So we know that he was baptized Lutheran baptized in a Lutheran church, Divi Blessini in Mulhausen. As a young boy, he played the bass clarinet and the French horn. Again, important details. He also exhibited great artistic talent for sketches and paintings. His father owned a small tobacco shop, but the business was insufficient to provide livelihood for all 3 sons. Roebling's sister, Friedrich Almain, got another Frederick, Alamy, married Carl Augustus Messener, we got another Carl, a poor merchant in the town, and his oldest brother, Hermann Christian Roebling, prepared to take over the tobacco shop. Again, like, this is just, why would this be any like even slightly important to the narrative? I came here to learn about, you know, this great inventor, like this I mean, you'd have to place him in the top 10 inventors in history, considering he supposedly invented the wire fucking suspension bridge that enabled the travel, opened up travel in ways that nothing else had for fucking such, you know, all over the world. Like, it's a technology that's supposedly used all over the world, and it all came from this one guy, and we don't know who he is. Just like with Drebel, Cornelius Drebel. The fact that people don't know who Cornelius Drebel is shocking. I didn't know who Cornelius Drebel was until I accidentally discovered him, but he's easily a top 3 inventor of all time. Like, he makes people like Einstein look like fucking Feinstein, you know? Like, what he was said to be able to do, what he's said to have invented. All these different things, microscopes, and he invented the camera obscura and the lantern magica, and he invented submarines, and like just all these completely unique things in their own regard. These aren't connected things. And he's just inventing everything. He could make it thunder and lightning on command. Not too many people in history are said to be able to do that. Again, did the comments get shut off, or you guys just getting lazy on me? Well, let's get some more of these details. About his brother and who his sister married, and as noted earlier, Roebling and his brother Carl immigrated to the United States, settling first in Pennsylvania. Okay. John Roebling and Johanna Herting had 9 children. Son Washington Augustus, 1837 to 1926. I thought people didn't live that long back then. Daughter Laura R. Methfelser. Are we going to sit here and say they all have different names too? 'Cause I know the daughter's married, so they have different names. Right? 1840 to 1873. She died young. Son Ferdinand William Roberg, 1842 to 1917. Daughter Elvira R. Stewart, 1844 to 1871. Man, his daughters did not do well. 33, 31. Wait, what is it? 44 to 33. 44 to 71. I mean, she's like 26, 27. Son Charles Gustavius Roebling, December 9th, 1849 to 1918. We know his birth date, but not his death date. And it's weird when they do this. So the blue ones you can click on. The regular type ones are just regular type. But then the red ones are like, no page has been made for this guy yet. Well, why would there be a page? What's the significance of this guy that his name is in red? I think they did shut it down. Another son, Edmund Roebling, 1854 to 1930. Son William Elderhorst Herbling, 1856 to 1860. Aww. Daughter Hannah Roebling died in infancy. Roebling's son Washington and his daughter-in-law Emily Warren Roebling continued his work on the Brooklyn Bridge. Of course. You invent bridges, you do bridges, your kids can do bridges. His son Ferdinand expanded his wife's his wire rope business. His son Charles designed and invented a huge 80-ton wire rope machine and founded the town of Roebling, New Jersey. Here, John A. Roebling's son's company steel mill was built. I mean, come the fuck on. Why does it present like this? So the comments have been shut down? I mentioned the comments being shut down. A couple comments come through, and then the comments get shut down? Gotcha. Makes sense. No, I get it. His granddaughter, Emily Roebling Cadwallader, was a married Philadelphia socialite noted as the owner of historic yachts. That must be a nice thing to be known for. His grandson, Washington A. Roebling II, died as a passenger on the Titanic. Oh, come on. They're not even trying. His great-grandson, Donald Roebling, was a noted philanthropist and inventor who devised the Amtrak. His great-great-grandson, Paul Roebling, was a well-regarded actor. What is the Amtrak? Oh, the amphibious vehicle tracked is an amphibious warfare vehicle and amphibious landing craft introduced by the United States Navy and United States Marine Corps. The United States Army, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's all just so fucking crazy. I'm just so shocked by the fact that they took out all of the information. What little meat and potatoes this thing did have, they took it out. I just don't even... I don't even get it, man. The earliest suspension bridges were ropes slung across a chasm with a deck possibly at the same level or hung below the ropes, such that the rope had a cantonary shape. One of Thao Tong Calypso's chain bridges in 1904. So this is from 1904, apparently. And this is Shushal Shaksam Thang Tong Gyalpos chain bridges. I don't know what that is. The wooden 1808 Burr suspension bridge in Schenectady, New York, USA, during demolition in 1871, showing wooden cables. Spans of 160, 190, 180, and 157 feet on 3 piers began to sag, and 4 supporting piers were added in 1833, making 8 spans. That's this picture, apparently. Interesting. The Tibetan Siddha and bridge builder Thang Tong Gyalpo originated the use of iron chain in his version of simple suspension bridges. In 1433, Gyalpo built 8 bridges in eastern Bhutan. So they had the chain making factory to make the chains that he used in 1433 to build 8 different bridges. The last surviving chain-linked bridge of Gyalpo's was the Thang Tong Gyalpo Bridge in Duksum, en route to Trashi Yangsti, which was finally washed away in 2004. Gyalpo's iron chain bridges did not include a suspension deck bridge, which is the standard on all model suspension bridges today. Instead, both the railing and the walking layer of Gyalpo's bridges used wires. The stress points that carried the screed were reinforced by the iron chains. Before the use of iron chains, it is thought that Gyalpo used ropes from twisted willows or yak skins. Get the fuck out of here. He may have also used tightly bound cloth. The Inca used rope bridges, documented in as early as 1615, and is not known when they were first made. Huesachacana is considered the last remaining Inca rope bridge and is rebuilt annually. Oh, the it's one of these bridges. Okay. I mean, you could see how somebody could do that. An early plan for the chain bridge over Menai Strait near Bangor, Wales, completed in 1826. Yeah, I mean, why not, right? Look at the little drawing with the little horse going across it. Do 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 do. I mean, to think that like they could do this is just stupid. 560 feet was the span of it. Oh, first chain suspension rate. You know what? I'm done. I'm fucking exhausted. Comments have shut off, been shut off, and I feel like shit. You guys have no idea. Anyway, I don't think I can actually put it in today because of the because I think they fucked up my thing, so I have to wait till it uploads. But go get your free download, www.thehyphenbuilderberg.group.com. It's free. All we ask is that you share it with someone. I'm going to leave a link to Hollywoodism. Again, I can't put any of these in the description right away, so if you're looking right after I'm done, you have to go to a previous video because it's always the same description. But there'll be a link to Hollywoodism, the most important video ever made, most important film ever made. And there'll be a link to 3 of the newest songs. A Sleight of Hand Job being the newest one. Donald Trump Hates America and COVID Sauce. The videos that are on Facebook. We ask that you just share them with people, like, share, sub, do all that good shit. If I'm not live here, I'm live there. So have yourself a great day, and most importantly, you pedophiles, you kill yourself.